Mother Nature, an unbiased giver and taker of life. She takes as she pleases and sheds no tears of remorse. Yet we still cling to her in hopes that we may somehow earn her favor and be granted life everlasting. She is cruel, but she is also kind, and we cannot fathom this paradox. The honeybee is no stranger to the cruel inconsistencies of Mother Nature.
The honeybee is a complex being. As stated by Thomas D. Seeley in his article, Beauty and the Bees in 2003, quote, honeybees see the world in color, perceives shapes and patterns, and can resolve rapid movement. Their olfactory sense is almost identical to ours, and their sense of taste is similar, but generally less sensitive. Bees live as a community, putting all their efforts into the greater good of the colony by eventually working themselves to the point of death. They are by any means an overwhelmingly fascinating species. However, if you are simply lacking a fascination towards the actual honeybee, let's discuss something that's probably going to strike your interest.
Honeybees are important because they pollinate a third of our food. So without bees, you wouldn't have tomato sauce or basil or some of the other herbs that go into your favorite food.
Not only do honeybees provide the delicious, gooey substance we call honey, but they are also the reason our fruits and vegetables are pollinated.
Well, if you like to eat stuff other than corn or wheat, then you care. The bees are responsible for about a third of the food that we eat, directly and indirectly. So even if you're a carnivore, well, lots of livestock is fed off of alfalfa. Alfalfa blooms, pollinated by bees.
According to the Natural Resources Defense Council in 2011, quote, from apples to almonds to the pumpkin in our pumpkin pies, we have bees to thank. Bees play a major role in our economy due to the use of honey and honeycomb in cosmetics, foodstuffs, soaps, and lotions, as well as the fact that they pollinate a wide variety of fruits, vegetables, and seeds. Although 1/3 of U.S. crops are pollinated by honeybees, as stated by PBS in their article, Silence of the Bees, written in 2009, the majority of the population knows little to nothing about the honeybee. In the U.S. alone, honeybees pollinate over 100 crops, which basically means without bees, we would lack the majority of vegetables and fruits that we consider to be staple foods today, such as cherries, cocoa beans, cucumbers, and even carrots. In fact, some farmers even rent bees to pollinate their crops.
Sometimes farmers will need their crops pollinated and they will contract and lease beehives from a beekeeper. That beekeeper will bring his own hives to the farmer's property to pollinate whatever is blossoming at that time. Like for example, almonds are pollinated 100% by bees. They are trucked in from all over the United States to Maine or wherever the almonds are located, and they're pollinated for a couple weeks, and then they're trucked out.
Although bees are just doing what comes natural to them, they create a huge impact on our society, from our economy to the overall quality of our environment.
It was found in 2006, colony collapse disorder. This is where a majority of the adult female bees go out into the field and do not come back. They get lost. They get disoriented. So a majority of them leave, but there's a moderate amount of honey, and then there's the queen with just a few nurse bees taking care of the larvae.
As described by the Agricultural Research Service's Colony Collapse Disorder Action Plan released in 2007, CCD is, quote, a significant disappearance of honeybee colonies that may be affecting bees in more than 22 states, that threatens the production of crops dependent on bees for pollination as well as honeybee production. Colony collapse disorder is the unexplained disappearance of the majority of adult bees in a hive, leaving only the larvae, queen, and a few nurse bees. However, if acted upon quickly, the bees can be replaced, saving the queen and the babies. However, more often than not, this disorder is caught way too late to do anything about it. This loss of worker bees leaves the hive vulnerable and weak, and eventually they'll die out. Luckily, this phenomenon has decreased over the past few years. According to an article published by the United States Environmental Protection Agency, updated in September of 2015, the number of those losses attributed to CCD has dropped from roughly 60% of total hives lost in 2008 to 31.1% in 2013. The progression of this disorder could become catastrophic. If colony collapse disorder continues to lead to the death of bees, it will not just affect beekeepers and farmers, but our economy as a whole.
That's the million-dollar question, or actually the multi-million-dollar question. Nobody really knows for sure.
There are various theories as to why colony collapse disorder is happening, but no concrete explanation.
They're trying to figure out what colony collapse disorder is. But I feel, as with scientists, that because of pesticides, fungicides, drought, hot weather, floods, pouring down wet rain. Also, too, developers making houses where the bees do not have food anymore.
Stated by Caroline McDonald in her article, New Crop Strategies Target Bee Scarcity, written in 2014, quote, "The most likely cause of the bees' disappearance, also known as colony collapse disorder, CCD, is thought to be a combination of varroa mites, insect diseases, stresses brought on by monocultures of crops, migratory beekeeping, and pesticides. Until further research studies have been done, there will be no completely accurate explanations for the occurrence of CCD. Something also worth noting is that according to the documentary Vanishing of the Bees, released in 2009, France experienced the effects of colony collapse disorder a decade prior to the United States' experience with the bee epidemic. However, after banning certain pesticides from being used on crops, the bees began to thrive again. Perhaps the United States should take a lesson from France and start taking vaster measures to protect the state of our honeybees.
On the federal level, I've not seen that much. All there really is that I can see is the start of petitions and organizations to protect pollinators in general, and bees fall under that umbrella.
When colony collapse disorder kind of kicked in big time, they did put together some kind of bee action plan thing. I think it was 2008. It was between the EPA and the Ag Department. The Texas Beekeepers Association, they do have some lobbyists, right, to kind of help lobby for pro beekeeping stuff, but yeah, it seems like to me the more people that we can get involved in beekeeping, then the more kind of movement there would be to do things to help the bees.
Although the federal government's involvement in any relation to bees is quite minimal, many federal agencies, like the Agricultural Research Service, a part of the USDA, are working towards the alleviation of CCD and have created an action plan in case CCD gets too intense. In fact, the USDA's article, Honeybee Health and Colony Collapse Disorder, last updated in 2015, says, quote, "The Agricultural Research Service, ARS, USDA's internal research agency, is leading several efforts into possible CCD causes and striving to enhance overall honeybee health by improving the bee management practices as well as studying honeybee diseases and parasites and how best to control them. Although the number of bees lost to CCD has significantly decreased from roughly 60 to 30% over the last few years, it is still vital that the government continues to search for the cause of CCD to prevent further damage to our bees. If the government does not continue to search for the cause of colony collapse disorder and our bees end up dying off, then we will be in a sticky situation later on." Local groups and statewide groups, like the Metro Beekeepers Association, the Texas Beekeepers Association, and the American Honey Producers Association, are working to raise a new generation of beekeepers who will continue to pass down the love of honeybees. Federal agencies like the United States EPA and the USDA are keeping a close watch on colony collapse disorder and its effects on our environment, and hopefully soon they can prevent it from affecting our economy too tremendously.
You can prevent colony collapse disorder from beehives by planting native wildflowers.
Plants wildflowers. Flowering plants are awesome, especially if you don't spray them. That's going to be the big one. Is for us people on like a home scale to just kind of cut down on the pesticide application and kind of encourage some flowering plants to grow.
Instead of using harmful pesticides or harmful fungicides, you can remove individual pests by taking a glove and taking them off. You can accept and expect a little pest activity.
So get out and start using your inner green thumb, because according to Jessica Holdman from the Bismarck Tribune, published in 2014, quote, "Grass alone doesn't provide food for honeybees. By seeding unplanted CRP land with plants such as alfalfa or sweet clover, the bees are given another forage source that wasn't previously available. All it takes is just a few seeds, a little time, and a lot of love to help save our bees, and in the process, save our earth."